Rob, good morning. Have you put together your questions for Brian Gutekunst yet?
So, Jason, I got to be honest. Nothing's really changed since we talked to him, or I talked to him last at the owners' meetings. Like literally nothing has happened. So I don't. I'm not sure why I'm going today. To be perfectly honest with you.
Well, one will be to figure out how the heck we're going to get in and out of the building as the draft approaches. All right, I want to get into a little bit of the draft logistics, but before we go any further, I don't think there has been a longer drawn out beyond the Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers sagas of a player's impending departure from Green Bay than the Jaire Alexander saga. And Rob, correct me if I'm wrong. You have a complete vendetta. No, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I've ever heard a general manager say what Goody did to you at the NFL meetings, which was if he's not going to be on the roster and helping us win games, then we want to get something for him because we've invested a lot in him.
Correct.
Usually when you're talking about the hypothetical of a guy not being on your team, all you say is he's on our roster right now.
Right.
As you stood there in real...
Yeah, or we'd like to keep everybody. That's the standard.
Right.
Goody
what
line,
did you
right?
think when you heard that out of Goody's mouth?
It just further confirmed, not that I needed another confirmation, that they would rather not have him on their team. Like they in a perfect world, and I think they intend to operate in a perfect world, Jaire Alexander is not on the team when the 2025 season starts. And I guess your definition of when it starts could be the start of the offseason program, which is today, virtually. Or is it the mandatory mini camp? Is it training camp? Is it week one? It's such an unusual situation for this reason, Jason, from a contractual standpoint. Very rarely do you have a veteran player who doesn't have any offseason guaranteed money. Like there was no March roster bonus that would have forced them to make a decision. Like they don't owe this guy a dime guaranteed until whoever they're playing week one. Like that's it. There is an off-season workout bonus. I would assume that he will not participate, in the off-season program. But this is as long and drawn out a process for a guy who I would say with 99.5% certainty is probably not going to be on their team.
Rob, when you say they don't want him, obviously I think that includes Goody in the front office, but does that also include Matt LaFleur and the coaching staff?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, this is an organizational feeling. The frustration level has come to the point where, they just don't want to not know from week to week whether a guy's going to play. It's not unlike the David Bakhtiari situation. Dave's injury was seriously severe. Jaire's maybe not as severe, but if they could get an assurance that Jaire Alexander is going to play 12 or 13 games this year, I think they would take him back. They just do not and cannot be in a position where they don't know. They're using a roster spot. They're giving practice reps. They're spending money on a guy that they don't know how many games he's going to play. I mean, and look, we don't know how many games anybody's going to play, but there's history here, and you just can't continually operate that way and expect to be successful.
The weird thing about it, though, is that he's 28 years old, and there are coaches, and I'm sure Goody believes this too, even though he clearly has made up his mind on this. The guy can still play when he plays, and that's the problem here, right? So when you look at this, have you garnered anything from John Thornton or from Jaire's side of this in terms of, like, if I'm him, I don't want to be traded. I'm not going to adjust my contract. I want to be able to go choose wherever I want to go. So has there been, Goody said to you at the NFL meetings, we're talking on a weekly basis. What does that conversation consist of?
Yeah, probably not much, to be honest. Probably, we've heard from some teams. We haven't heard from some teams, something like that. But I can tell you from talking to people on the Jaire side of things is that he will not take a pay cut. The Packers have not offered a pay cut, at least at last time I inquired a week or so ago, or maybe a little more than that. they have not offered a pay cut, and even if they did, he would not take it. There's frustration on Jaire's part. I'm sure about how they would like to be able to pursue other opportunities, right? Like, I mean, he wants to get on with this, and the hard thing for him is what he's supposed to make. Is it about $17.5 million this year? If they cut him, he's not making that, right? Like, no one signing him. He's going to lose money in this proposition one way or another. So it's a tough situation for everybody.
Why won't Goody just admit that they're not going to get a trade piece for him and just cut him? Because is there any? Because I like the only reason to hold on to this guy for this long is like, hey, you couldn't play for us, so now out of spite, I'm going to hold on to you. Like I don't think that's it, Jay. I don't think that's it, but like that's the only thing I can make sense in my head.
Right. I think, Gabe, it's a good question. You might as well wait till the draft, like through the draft, right? Maybe somebody gives
at this point.
Maybe somebody doesn't get a guy that they wanted, doesn't get a corner. But come Monday, a week from today, if he's still on your roster, I would think that at that point there has to be some sort of a resolution.
Well, it has been a long, protracted saga from the moment that he came into the locker room on cleanout day, was going to talk, and then publicly announced that he was not going to talk.
Right. I'm sure the first two questions for Goody which would set the tone, and I say that sarcastically, would be, why is Jaire Alexander on your roster, and why haven't you drafted a receiver in the first round? Like, you want to talk about a couple questions asked? Let's start it off that way and see where things go.
Yeah, well, honestly, when you brought up, like, oh, what do you want to ask Goody? I've thought about this. I would want to ask Goody, what is it about this wide receiver class that you decided you wanted to bring 6 guys in for 4 meetings? Because, again, if you have to ask it the right way, and clearly if you ask it the way Rob proposed it, you're not getting a good answer. Right. But the fact that we know the Packers like to bring in guys who they're eventually going to draft. They want to get more information. That's what they use these 30 visits for. And the fact they've brought in 6, I think that says a lot, including Ted McMillan, Matthew Golden, and Emeka Ibuka, who are 3 of the top guys at that position in this draft class. And
it sure sounds like McMillan, Gabe, is not going to be there at 23.
Correct.
I went through with a personnel person about 6 or 7 days. It was mid last week on just where he thought the whole first round was going to fall from about. I think we started around 12 or 13 to where the Packers went, and I mean McMillan could go. He could go to Dallas at 23 or at 12. I mean, I just don't see how he gets to 23. I do think that if he were to happen to be there at 23, the streak would end. I really believe that they would pick him from what I was told, but I just don't think that's realistic. As for the other guys, I don't know if that, like, I'll just give you a little hint. 2 of those guys that you mentioned were on the board for me when we did our ESPN NFL Nation mock draft TV show, which will air tomorrow night. And I did not pick either one of them because I just don't think they're going to take a receiver in the first round unless it's McMillan.
In fairness to our listeners, you've never gotten that pick right in your entire ESPN career, correct?
I was reminded, though, that last year or 2 years ago on our WBAY show, which we see, the problem with the ESPN show is we have to do the draft on Friday and tape the show over the weekend. So there's intel comes out. On the WBAY show 2 years ago, I did get Lucas Van Ness correct on that show. So I'm going to defend one for 13 or whatever.
When you're a TV star, like Rob, you get multiple opportunities at this. You're on multiple shows across all these different places.
That's right. And here's the thing too is I think I know what I think they want in the pick, but the problem was, and just like in the real draft, the guy I think they're going to take was gone in our real draft, but I think in the real draft he might be there. So like Jason has the opportunity to either not do a mock draft where it goes the whole way, or if he does, he can manipulate it exactly so that the guy he wants is going to be there. So in my defense, I'm at the mercy of, in this case, 22 other idiots in front of me who may or may not know what the hell their team's going to do. And well, let me say this. I'll take that back. There's 22 two in front of me. There's 20 idiots and Todd Archer with the Cowboys who knows what he's doing. No, I'm totally. I love all
Todd
my
Archer.
ESPN colleagues.
We love Todd Archer, although I think he probably made you think the Packers were going to get that Cowboys defensive lineman who ended up being franchise tagged and extended by the Cowboys. All right,
It was
Rob.
actually not Archer, but it was someone with the Cowboys organization who pointed that out. But,
I wonder who that
my
could
sources
be.
aren't media people.
So let's talk a little bit about the logistics of the draft. You,
I've been over
Jesse,
there a few
made
times in the last week.
You what?
I've been over there like 3 times in the last week.
And how's it look? Because I have not been over there. This will be the first time I've been over there.
Yeah.
What's it look like to you?
It looks like it's going to be hard to get in. That's for sure. I was over there about 10 days ago. I'm working on a story that I think is going to run tomorrow. Well, I've already worked on it. It's done. But on just how this NFL's smallest city is going to host their second biggest event, right? The first biggest being the Super Bowl. And I ended up knocking on the door of the 2 people who live closest to the stage. There's 2 houses on the corner of Lombardi and Oneida. They're both duplexes. And just by happenstance, both people, they live on one side and rent out the other side. And on the northwest corner of the street, that woman who rented out her half of the duplex got $32,000 for 4 nights. And the woman across the street can't give hers away. So it's still available for those people looking for a close spot to the stage. And I say that because I don't know if it's going to be quite as crazy as we thought it was going to be. There's plenty of hotel rooms. I mean, if you go to like Marriott.com or Holiday Inn or Hilton, the actual websites of the hotels, you won't find rooms. But if you go to the secondary market, the travel sites, the Expedias, whatever, if that even still exists, there's plenty of rooms available and at pretty reasonable prices. I do think that it's a small area for, if they get as many people as they think, it's a pretty small area to put a lot of people in. Look, I mean, I think I'm not going to say it was overhyped and they're not going to get as many people as they thought, but the closer we get to it, the more I'm wondering if maybe it's not going to be completely chaotic. Like I don't think it quite will be out of control.
So has your concern, because we heard it in the montage that Jesse did, has your concern about us looking like small town podunk, one stoplight, one controlled traffic signal, whatever that line Barry used in his Washington Post story, has your concern been allayed, and now it's more just the logistics?
Yeah, I talked to at the NFL meetings. I talked to Peter O'Reilly, who's basically the head of NFL events. Like he's in charge of the Super Bowls and this kind of thing. And I said that to him. I go, look, I'm going to just say this: the perception of Green Bay is that it's a bunch of small town people who don't belong in the NFL. And I think if I said the draft goes poorly, that's not going to help the reputation. And he looked at me and he said, it will go smooth. No one will think that. I really do believe that there are the right people in charge. For example, I was talking to somebody over there who is part of like logistics or something. I don't know exactly what they do. That seems like when you say you're a consultant, what do you really do? But this was a logistics person. And he said he had just worked his 27th Super Bowl for the NFL. Like they have people in there that know what they're doing, right? It's that not necessarily just Joe from Henry's garage filling in and setting up stages, and it seems like it's I think it's going to be okay. Who knows what the weather's going to be like though, Jace? Like, I mean, I remember years back when the draft was just a 2-day event and walking into Lambeau Field on that Saturday and there being snow flurries, right? Like, nothing's out of the question. I played 4 rounds of golf last week, and it was only really warm for one of them, and the other 3 that if it wasn't April, I wouldn't be playing, but I was just itching to play. So it's not been great up here, as you know.
How is the golf game? Pretty good. 4 times in 1 week, Rob. I am impressed. That a boy.
Yeah.
With the draft approaching.
Yeah, 4 days in a row. And I hope my bosses aren't listening, but Yeah, not bad.
Nobody's listening anyway.
I heard you, Gabe. I heard you talking about your 100 holes, 10. Your goal is 10 birdies.
Yeah.
I think I was. Let's see. I was 2, 3. I was 6 birdies in 4 rounds. It was probably a little bit off pace for that.
Still pretty good.
Right?
It's pretty close. Pretty close. One more birdie and you're right there.
6 birdies in 72 holes. That's probably not enough.
Yeah, and then you get hot for a little bit, and you make a couple birdies in a row, and just that deficit disappears like that.
Yeah.
All right, Rob, a couple more things before we let you go, and then I'll see you over at Lambeau in a little while. One, Tausch has made the comment, and it's also in the montage that Jesse did such a good job on, about how this is a crucial year and seats are going to get warm if there's not significant steps forward.
Yeah.
I'm amazed at how different this offseason has felt. You know, they win their last 3 regular season games. They beat the Cowboys, and they have the 49ers on the ropes a year ago. This year, they lose their last 3 games, including the playoff game. Do you get the sense, I keep talking about what a pivotal year it is for Goody, LaFleur, Love, Lucas Van Ness, so many people. How do you what's your 30,000-foot view of where they're headed in 25?
Well, throw in the fact, Jason, that there'll be a new man in charge of the team, Ed Policy, who, look, I mean, Ed's worked there for, 12 years, and presumably he, is on board with a lot of things that Mark Murphy did, but, we don't know if Ed thinks these guys are the right people. We don't know that. I assume that he does, but, if the season doesn't go right and Ed Policy's in his first year as president, does he feel like he has to do something? I mean, I think it's just a question at this point. I don't think it's necessarily a fear or an expectation that that might happen. But, it was interesting. I wrote this last week, I think it was, maybe the week before after the owners' meetings, about how, LaFleur didn't necessarily want to lose coaches from his staff, but he was kind of looking forward to the fact that, if Steno does get the offensive coordinator job that he interviewed for in, Seattle and somewhere else, I can't remember, Jacksonville, maybe Houston, it does give him a chance to bring in some new ideas and some fresh ideas, because look, we've seen, this is going to be year 7. Is that right? Under LaFleur, if my math is right.
Correct.
This is sort of the time that, you can get a little stale in your thing. You can't just keep running the same offense that you've run every year. Eventually people catch up to it. And we saw that, under previous coaching staffs, where around this point, if you don't get, creative, and you're just relying on the same, concepts and your players just to be better, that can have a negative impact. So, I do think that there is a little bit of that to watch for. The interesting thing to me, and you talk about compare the last 2 seasons, I mean, I totally realize how they ended this season versus how they ended it 2 years ago, but they won more games. I mean, they won more games in 2024 than they did in 2023. Their quarterback was hurt for half the year, if not more. They had a new defense, all that, winning the game, 11 games or whatever it was, all that. It's a little surprising that there is this sort of, feeling of they better get something done. And I feel it too. I'm not saying it's unwarranted, but it is a little bit unusual, I think.
Well, when you go 1-5 in your division and 0-6 against the 3 really good teams in the NFC, there is that perception. All right, I don't want you to give away the farm of who you're going to select on the ESPN draft.
Jason doesn't, but I do. Rob.
No.
So feel free.
Save your content. But who's on your big board,
What
Mel?
does it rhyme with?
It rhymes with I'll give you the position. I'll put you this way.
All right.
It rhymes with ledge.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I see you. You and Goody. I see you and Goody being smitten. You're quite the athlete yourself. You have 2 sons who are remarkable athletes. I see you as kind of a Shamar Stewart guy. 9.99 RAS.
4.5 career sacks. Yeah.
Well, you know what? It's funny because when I was looking at those guys, and I talked to this personnel person, and we were going through that kind of stuff, and he was like, Stewart's got all the measurables. He's got this, he's got that, but boy, there's just not much production there. It said, sounds like a perfect Packers pick.
I wish that wasn't so true. I wish that wasn't so true.
That's not, that wouldn't be, if I were picking for the Packers, and I do this, like, I think there's a misconception about mock drafts. Like, I do it trying to predict who the Packers would take, not who I would take, right? No one cares. No one cares what me in this little tiny notebook full of notes thinks of these guys, right? Like, no one cares about that. So I'm trying to do, what the Packers would do. And I can tell you this, that there is a pass rusher other than Stewart, and it's not one of the top two guys that they would prefer before Shamar Stewart. I don't know. And it's probably who I'll pick for my selection on the WBAY special. But unfortunately, that player was gone in our ESPN NFL Nation mock draft. So I probably just basically told you, who I'm picking based on all that context. But I think edge is such a – they've talked so much about trying to increase this pass rush with, 4 and not have to, do a bunch of blitzing. The one position that I don't really have a great feel of is corner. I feel like I got a pretty good handle on the receivers. I feel like I've got a pretty good handle on the edge guys and even some of the interior defensive linemen. I don't know what the Packers think of the corners. That has been hard for whatever reason to discern. And quite frankly, didn't spend a whole lot of time talking to the personnel people I did about corners because a lot of people, Jason, real quick, I'm sure when you talk to scouts over the years, the teams try to do their own mock drafts, right? They try to, they try to figure out who's going to be available. And there weren't a lot of corners off the board. In fact, let's see if we went through the scouts that I've talked to basically said that before the Packers would pick, there'll be 3 quarterbacks gone, 5 offensive linemen gone, 3 defensive tackles gone, 2 running backs gone, a corner, an inside linebacker, a safety, and a tight end. So however many that is, 3, 8, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And that's not counting any of the edge rushers, right? So if there's 5 edge rushers that have first round, possibilities, they'll have their choice of 1 or 2 of those. So again, this is just putting it together from what the personnel people are trying to do with their own mock draft. So take that for what it's worth.
Rob, I'll see you at Lambeau in a little bit. We appreciate you.
Yeah, by the way, the media auditorium, as far as I understand, is still operational.
Good.
Yeah. The problem is that's the only thing we have access to for the 19 hours that we're going to be at Lambeau Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we're all going to be stuck in that one smelly room listening to Joe Radio Guy, and not that you guys are this because you're not doing, the Packers are on the clock here in about 10 minutes, and we'll see what they do at pick 175. But anyway, that's the draft room for us. And by the way, when you come into Lambeau, because I drove by yesterday, it looks like for us, we go down Ridge Road coming in from the backside, and then you turn right into lot 9 or 10 and park there. Now from there, I don't know how the heck we get into the stadium, but that was my scouting.
Start climbing walls.
All I know is I was offered the luxurious option of doing the show from my car in the parking lot today if I wanted to get there early. So that was my option. All right, Rob, we'll see you soon, buddy. Thank you.
All right.